What's going on, everybody? Hey, this your boy CS Motivated Minds. So the video that I'm going to post was just me out riding, and I was thinking, and I just kind of started talking because over the past year or so, we've been seeing a whole lot of talk, whether it's on TV or in the headlines about critical race theory or CRT, as they like to call it. And you have people that are on both sides, as far as some people feel like it should be taught in schools. Some people feel like it shouldn't be. But the folks who oppose the teaching of CRT, they give their various reasons. And then you have some people that jumped on the train. And what I have found is that most people have no clear understanding or have no clue of what critical race theory actually is. In this video, I don't really dig deep into critical race theory because I'm going to use another video to do it. Because like I said, a lot of people don't really understand or have no clue of what it is. So basically, critical race theory has 5 tenets or 5 principles. And in this particular video, I kind of focus on the second tenet, or tenet number 2, which basically states, so basically, I kind of focus on that part and that long definition of tenet 2. Well, I kind of focus on, the aspect where it talks about, institutional rules and laws, because I kind of get into history, and y'all see what I'm talking about, and how racism is basically ingrained into our institutions and into the laws. I hope y'all enjoy the video. If you like it, hit that thumbs up button down there. At any time, feel free to leave a comment, subscribe. It's always cool to share this with your kids or your friends. That way you can go back and have, open dialogue and discussion about some of the topics that I talk about. Hey, this your boy CS. I'm out. They got me in break mode. They got me in shake mode. Take mode. Turn this down right quick. Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your boy CS Motivated Minds. Hey, check this out. I've been really thinking lately about this whole thing about critical race theory, or CRT, as people like to call it. So number one, I've just been thinking about, why so many people against the teaching of critical race theory in school. Well, let me back up. The first thing about critical race theory is I wondered, what is critical race theory? And why are so many people against teaching it in school? Now, this video is not really going to be about critical race theory. And I ain't quite sure which way I want to go with this, but I know where I'm going. But I don't know how I'm going to get there. So it's not really about critical race theory, but there's just something that has been really on my mind and hit me the other day when I was watching TV. So when I start to think about, basically the history of racism in this country and how race has shaped, the attitudes and the institutions within this country, it starts to make sense of why they don't want to teach critical race theory in schools. Because the bottom line is that, in my opinion, and I don't really want to talk about this right because I want to go somewhere else for this, but in my opinion, critical race theory is teaching true history in this country. And when you teach it, basically, it forces people to deal with some truths about this country that they don't really want to deal with or address. For example, the writers of the Constitution of this country, they wrote, or the writers of the Declaration of Independence, they put in there that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and have certain inalienable rights, and that's the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, what history does not teach you is that, or what they won't tell you in school, is that 41 of the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence owned slaves. So, how can the writers and signers of the Declaration of, or the Declaration of Independence say those words that basically all men are created equal? Well, wait a minute, back up, and I'll tell you how. Because at the time, my ancestors were not considered men; they were considered property, and I've said that in video after video after video. So therefore, they could write it because they didn't consider them men, and they weren't considered equal; they were considered property. And you know that basically everybody has certain inalienable rights. Well, because we were considered property, we didn't have rights. So that's just one thing that they won't teach you in history. But that's not what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is, when you start talking about history within itself, there's a funny thing that I just thought about. I was watching Women of the Struggle and the episode about Emmett Till. And I thought, okay, let me ask my youngest son, just about Emmett Till. Or if you ask any kid in elementary or middle school or junior high about Emmett Till, I wonder how many of them will know about who Emmett Till is and what his story is. Because I would dare say not many, unless their parents are teaching them at home. And as I watched that, I started to realize that my mother and father were alive during this time. And I just kind of thought that, I started thinking about the whole civil rights movement. And I realized that we're losing our elders. And when I say we, I'm just saying, I know for me in my community, in the black community, we're losing our elders. And I just kind of thought, like, once the people who were born, I'll say because we still have people that they're living in the 30s, so, or who were born in the 30s. There's some of the people still living. So once the people were born in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and at some point during the 60s, pass away, all the people who have firsthand knowledge or experience of the segregation and the Jim Crow laws, all those people are gone. So when it comes down to history, people can teach history from the perspective of how they want to teach it, which really they're doing now. But I'm just saying, I can go and sit and talk to my mama about Medgar Evers, which is a name that you don't ever hear. I can talk to my dad about Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, and Fred Hampton. I can talk to my parents about what it was like to go to school in a segregated school. But not only segregated schools, but schools that were segregated and enforced by the state and the federal government. Anybody remember the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing in Birmingham, Alabama, where the 4 little girls were killed when they bombed the church? Yeah, asking a lot of these kids, they don't remember it either because they don't teach it. So I'm just saying that when a lot of those folks are gone, a lot of that history is going right along with it. I'm not trying to rehash, but that history is important because a part of that is a part of what the United States is. And that is a part of what critical race theory teaches, true history. Well, I think about my neighborhood and the area I grew up in. And I think about all of the elders that are still around there. And as those folks leave this earth, right, and they pass away, all that history is going to go with them. And it just blows my mind when I sit back and I think about the fact that I may be the first, maybe the second generation in my family that was born with the full rights of an American citizen. Think about that for a second. Because my great-grandparents, who I talk about a lot, and all my greats, they were born in the early 1900s. And I'm saying like 1910, 1913. So they were born with full rights because they were maybe 1 or 2 generations removed from slavery. So then my grandparents came along. They weren't born with full rights to the city. What I mean by that is there were all kinds of the Jim Crow laws. So, you know, there was all kinds of obstacles for them to vote. You know, in certain places they couldn't go. Like my Uncle Brent served in World War II. Well, I'll go back to Mr. Slim. Mr. Slim served in World War I. So when Mr. Slim came back from the war, he had to go to the back of the bus, right? Or go in and to the side doors of the restaurant. And he couldn't sit down and eat. So he didn't have the full rights of an American citizen. Then you got like Uncle Brent. He was my great uncle as well. So he served in World War II. Same thing with him. Then you got my parents. My parents went to a segregated high school, and the same thing with voting, and they couldn't sit at the counters and all that. So if I come down, to my oldest brother was born in 1964. So I want y'all to think about that for a minute. They were still neck deep in the civil rights movement in 1964. Because Malcolm X had just Malcolm X got assassinated. Nope. Malcolm X got assassinated in 1965, which is the year after my oldest brother was born. Right? So then my other brother was born in 1968. What happened in 1968? Martin Luther King got assassinated. I want to say April 4th, 1968. Right? So I got a brother that was born the same year that Martin Luther King was assassinated. So he might have. So what I'm saying is, I may be the first or second generation in my family that was born with full rights of an American citizen. So all I'm saying is, everybody talking about critical race theory, what critical race theory is, and I'll get more in detail about it in another video. But I just thought about it and why they don't want to teach it, and I started thinking about my parents. And, if we're going to teach history in this country, they need to teach true history. Not just Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, and George Washington Carver. They need to teach a little more than that. Because again, once I say like my parents and that generation, or those people that were born, I'm going to say in the 30s, because some of them are still around, 40s, 50s, and part of the 60s, one that were actually there and they were alive for some of that stuff. Once those people are gone, they can really teach what they want to our children in school. So this your boy CS Motivated Minds. I just want y'all to think about it.